Hi group, it's Mrs. Schaus here. We're getting ready to head into Unit 3. Unit 3 is all about investing in ourselves so that we can get a good job, and then also thinking about how we're paid, not only ways that we're paid, but some additional pieces like benefit packages and that type of thing. We're going to start out today with just some very simple calculations. If you read along with me here, it says that workers are paid in a variety of ways. Okay, we're going to consider a few of these forms of wages: hourly and overtime pay, piecework, salary, and then also commission. Eventually, we're going to consider some other forms of pay. Like I mentioned, maybe benefit packages would be one of those ways that we receive some additional compensation. So for today, in this video, we're just going to look at two parts. What happens when folks are paid hourly, including some overtime, and when they're paid by the piece. All right, first of all, for hourly and overtime pay, many workers, and probably most of you, if you do have a job, are paid an hourly wage. And that is for, of course, the time that you work. So keep in mind that by law, a company must pay the worker time and a half for hours that they work over 40 each week. However, some employers are more generous than that, and so they may pay double time, or in some situations even triple time. Double time typically for a holiday. Occasionally it rolls into more of a triple time situation if it's hours over 40 and a holiday and on the weekend, that kind of a thing. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. I'm going to try to pull this down just a little closer to make it easier to see. That might be a little better. Okay, George is paid hourly at a rate of $12.50 per hour. He worked a total of 44 hours last week. How much is his gross weekly pay? So this is as simple as taking the original 40 hours that he worked and multiplying by his rate, but then recognizing that since he worked a total of 44 hours, that's 4 additional hours, and he's going to be making a higher rate here. That's going to be paid out at a rate of time and a half, which means 1.5 or 1.5 times his hourly rate. So if we do $12.50 times 1.5, that gives us a total of $18.75 as his hourly rate for those 4 additional hours. Okay, so let's do that. $18.75 times 4 hours. He's making $75 just for those 4 hours. Those are an important 4 hours, perhaps, in his overall pay. Now I'm going to do the original 40 hours times $12.50 each. That gives him $500. So he ends up making $500 for the first 40 hours, $75 more for the next 4 hours, and that gives him a total of $575 in gross pay. Notice that I am labeling this as gross pay, and I think at this age, most of you probably know the difference in gross pay and net pay. Gross pay means our pay prior to any deductions. So that could be taxes or other kinds of deductions, like if we have expenses that we pay out for uniforms, or maybe there's even a piece that we want to put into retirement, or something like that. So before those deductions, we call this our gross pay. Let's take a look at one more together of that type. So Mark works at a drugstore. He's paid an hourly rate of $16 per hour. Last week he worked his regular 40 hours, but he was paid double time for 5 additional hours on Saturday, which was a holiday. His work pays double time for holiday hours. How much was his gross pay for the week? So once again, we're going to take his original 40 hours and multiply by his regular hourly rate of 16. But for the 5 additional hours that he worked as a holiday pay, he's going to get paid double, or 2 times this amount. Well, 16 times 2 we know is 32. So he's going to be paid $32 for each of those 5 hours. Let's take a look at those calculations. So 32 times 5 gives me 160 here. And if I do 40 hours times 16, that would give me 640. So once again, he's going to make the 640 and the 160. 640 plus 160 gives me a total of $800 as a gross pay. Okay, I think a couple of examples of that style are sufficient, since they're pretty easy calculations for us. Sometimes folks are paid by the piece, or we call that piecework, which means that the workers are paid a specific or specified amount for each item of work that they do or that they complete. I wrote in here, this could mean like they're producing a product, and so for each product they make, they get a certain amount of money. Or maybe it's completing a step in creating the process. Those are just a couple of examples, okay? All right, something to think about. Why would companies want to pay workers by the piece? And then why might some companies prefer not to pay workers by the piece? I'll let you think about that for a moment while we take a look at these couple of calculations. Anna makes costume jewelry for a small company. They pay her by the piece. She receives $12 for each necklace and $5.50 for each bracelet that she makes. What would be her gross pay for a week in which she makes 18 necklaces and 24 bracelets? So we just have to make sure we match these up. $12, oops, there goes the light, sorry about that, and back on it is. $12 for each necklace, and she made a total of 18 of those, so we'll multiply there. And then she is paid $5.50 for each bracelet that she produces, which was totaling 24. And so 12 times 18 gives us $216 for that part. $5.50 times 24 gives us $132 for that portion. And we'll add those two together, and we get $348 as her gross pay. Pretty simple. One more. James makes custom tools for a tooling company. He is paid by the piece. For each tool of type 1, he makes $1.20, and for each tool of type 2, he makes 94 cents. How much money does he earn in a week where he produces 500 tools of type 1 and 720 tools of type 2? So once again, we're pairing up how much that he makes for each of the first type of tool and how many of those he produces, how much for each of the second type, and how many that he produces. $1.20 times 500 is $600. 94 cents times 720 is $676.80. And of course, if we add those together, we're going to get $1,276.80 as his gross pay. All right, let's go back to this whole question of why companies might want to pay their workers by the piece or why they may not want to. When workers are paid by the hour, do they really have incentive to work quickly? And, the answer might be no. I mean, maybe there are some incentives. But if there aren't necessarily incentives for that individual, they might work at a slower pace. So if we pay our workers by the piece, if something's being produced, we might increase productivity. That would certainly be a good thing for both the company, if they want or have the ability to be able to sell whatever it is they're producing, and also for the person who's receiving the pay, because they will receive a higher pay. So increasing productivity could be a good incentive. However, many companies prefer not to pay by the piece, because if we pay by the piece and the worker is wanting to make more money, what could happen is that they might work too quickly, and if they work too quickly, while productivity might go up, quality might go down, right? So it might be an issue of quality control, something companies need to think about when they're making that decision. All right, so you folks have these two types of pretty basic calculations to consider in your next assignment. And we'll move forward in the next few days to look at some different types of pay that are a little bit more involved in a calculation sense, nothing too difficult. And again, that whole idea of investing in ourselves. So that's what's coming up. Make it a great day, folks, and I'll talk to you soon.